DOTE.
Welcome to part 3 of how to do transcription with DOTE, how to use DOTE to create a transcript and work on it. And this part 3 is going to be what happens if you're not creating your own from scratch, but you want to copy in from another document or another source or a published source into DOTE and then start to format it so that it can be worked on in DOTE. So I'm going to illustrate that with two examples, one using the Jeffersonian system and one using the Mondadian system. And what you see here is a new project I created, what I did, this is what it looks like when you create a new project. There is no media because we're just going to copy it from a publication and insert it into the editor and try and format it. You may have a media source and you can add that using the media manager. And that will allow you to add in some media and start using syncodes to sync it together. But for the moment, we'll assume we don't have any media. So I'm just going to use this double chevron here to just show us only the editor. And what we're going to do, as you see here on the right, is we're going to take from Shegloff's book, Sequence Organization and Interaction, Appendix 2, which is a long transcript of many pages from a phone call, roughly about 16 minutes. And I'm just going to take the first lines and then show you how we can copy that in and start working on it to build it up. DOTE doesn't have its own importers yet, or exporters, so you just need to have something that's reasonably plain text, and then you have to do some work, as I'll show you, in order to format it correctly. We hope to have in the future converters from different systems, but it's not our priority at the moment. Okay, so, and this is a rather unusual transcript because it has not only line numbers but also sections of the transcript. So it's not a continuous line number until the very end. It actually restarts the line number with a new section number +1. So we're not going to bother too much about that because we're only going to take the first lines. Let's take all of these 27 lines here. And one thing you can do in Adobe Acrobat, for example, or a PDF reader, is often export as plain text. So if you come down to export to, you can export as a Word document, rich text format, or as plain text. That might help, but sometimes that looks really awful and things look very different. So that's one way to do it. Export as plain text and open that document and then copy paste it into DOTE. I'm just going to try straight off, which can even also be terrible depending on the formatting that's been used. I'm going to select all, I'm going to try and select all of it. There. I've selected all that text. I'm just going to copy and then I'm going to paste it here. And you can see that's done a reasonable job. What you may notice is that underlinings have not carried over because the way we do underlinings is not similar to how Word or a PDF documents use underlining. Underlining in PDF is done differently from Word. Sometimes they can be copy-pasted, but in our system it can't at the moment. So that's something we're going to have to work on. But you may notice we have these now line numbers fixed here, which we might want to get rid of. We could leave them like that, and then that would be fine. But it's still not yet in DOTE format, because what you'll see here, well, maybe there's a space or some sort of symbol here. It's not a tab. So we'd like to have a tab here. That means deleting that, adding a tab. And now you should see there's an arrow. The hidden character there is an arrow. So basically we'd have to go through and add a tab for every one of these, as you can see I'm doing. And maybe we can show that that's working by going to transcript options and increasing the width of the name column. Let's put it to 13. And now you'll see these ones are all moved, but none of the others are. This one, of course, needs a tab. And there it is. And this one needs a tab. And this one will need a tab. This one needs a tab before it. And basically we have to go through by hand. If there's a long list, for example, here we have 3, what you can do using multi-cursor is click here, and then if you press Alt, for example, and then click where you want it to finish, you can add wherever you want. And that means If it disappears, you press escape, it will come back. That means you can delete all of those and add the tab all at once, as if those lines were all being edited at the same time. And then click somewhere else, and then that's taken off. We could see here, if we place it before, and then I think it's Shift-Alt, that does it all in one go. Delete back, and then we've done those. I could have done that one as well, but that doesn't work. You can do it for many, but unfortunately that won't work necessarily if there's no space here before. We need to delete the spaces. So if I do that again, Shift-Alt, delete back, tab, and then this one I can do. If I press Alt, I can do that one as well, and I could do that one, and that one, and that one. But as I said, if I do that, then there's no space here to delete, so that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is just select these, delete back, add the tab, and then do the same for here. Alt, click there, add the tab. If it disappears, add the tab, and then we're done. Now those are all formatted. But there are some small little things that you might need to correct. This has done a reasonable job of importing. Notice we have that symbol there. We might not want that one. We might just want the plain like that. That's a choice you have. We could just leave it like it is there, though it looks a bit clumsy. I'll just change it to that. You may also notice we've got this symbol here, which is, we could just maybe check if that's correct. If I add now Control Enter to do some autocomplete, it is a soft. That's what we have for soft in DOTE. So it's not exactly the same, and it was a single one. And are there any others here we can see? No. Oh, there's one down here. So if we do the same again, if you just type S and choose soft, and that was a single one again. And here's a dot, but it's quite a raised dot. In DOTE we have it as a middle dot, which is used sometimes. So I could delete that, and then I choose in-breath, I for in-breath, and there we have that one. There's another one of these, so that's S for soft. Control Enter, soft. It doesn't come up immediately. And I think we've covered all of those ones. We might want to get rid of these line numbers and add our own line numbers. So what we can do again is if I do Shift-Alt and then click at the bottom here, you'll see I can actually just delete everything there in one go. And there we've deleted all those line numbers, and we can add those line numbers ourselves when we do an export to RTF. And there you see now we have I haven't actually chosen it with line numbers, the line numbering none, all. Now I've added the line numbers, and there we've got it formatted and with a bit of syntax highlighting, but we can get rid of that if we want. And we can also add a bit more color here like that, though we have no sub-tiers. So let's just leave it like that. That just shows you we're getting there. We've almost, I think, pretty much done everything. But we have some warnings or errors here. In fact, these are a missing closing symbol. You could say, well, where does this close? I would prefer to have a close here. Oh, we've got another one of these, a .h. So if I just say Control Enter and choose an in-breath, get rid of that part, then we've got the dot there. There could be others that we've missed. We could look here and just double check. We need to do a bit more underlining. So there's an underlining from here to here. Control U, standard, does an underline. The O here, underline. And here on the prolongation, an underline with a rise. And then on the G of good. And of course we could carry on a parking place here. I think it's on the, it's only on the prolongation and on the K, parking. Okay, so you can see we could go through and add all of those, and I think that we've done pretty much everything. Now you can see that things haven't quite aligned as they should do. We have an overlap here, so if I click here you can see so there's some error here. It doesn't like that, so it won't do a overlap. So I can just correct that here. We've got this one here. Again, there's some problem, and that just needs some spaces. Misaligned there because it thought it might be overlapping here. That's correct now. And then there's this one here. And if there are errors like this, it makes it hard for DOTE to figure out what exactly is going on because it's a bit confused. In this case, the error is missing closing symbol there. And this one needs to be aligned. Okay. This is obviously aligning somewhere else, and that's why there's a missing overlap end symbol there, though we have them here. Where is the overlap end? It could be it's there, but it's missed on the line. No, it doesn't seem. That's just the H of the out-breath is overlapping with it on the next page. Okay, so we've done a pretty good job so far, and that's just taking it from an Adobe PDF and adding it. We might want to add sync codes, and if we did have an audio file, there is an audio file that you can download here. So I'm just going to show you briefly what it might look like if we have included that audio file. So I'm going to open a project. It will ask me to save this if I do this. I'm going to choose this one here and this one. So I'll say save, and here we have the same, but it's now included with sync codes. And now we can hear from this point.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Okay.
Good. You
I
sound...
wanted to know if you got a...
So there we have a version of it with all of the stressing, underlining, with overlaps are now correct, and with the two errors here that are because of the lack of closure. That's a preference maybe to do with a particular time in transcription where closing the offset of a particular activity, a phenomenon might not have been so important, but we prefer that is completed here, like where, at what point is it only on the first phoneme, on the first set of sounds, is it on the end of the line, that's completed. So that's what it could look like. What we're going to do now is see, well, how do we do with Mondadian system? Because this is a very simple, it's one language, it's English, there's no translation subtiers, there's no other special activities, it's a telephone conversation. So what I'm going to do is open up a project, and I think it's this one here. It's blank, ready, and if I show you just here, this is from Lorenzo Mondada's conventions. The current up-to-date at this point of 5.0.1, and we pretty much implement all of these in DOTE. And then we're going to take 13b down here and see what happens if we import this and what we have to do to make it conform to DOTE. So I'm just going to select all of that. I'll take the 13b text as well. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it here. And then you can see it's a bit more of a mess. Because of the type of PDF document that this is. So that would be better from a Word document, but here we have to make do. So what we can do, here we need to see some sort of comment, metadata. If we add that, we've got the metadata. I'll just put a space after that. We've got line 1, we don't want line numbers, we'll add our own line numbers. And then we've got what looks like something that's being said, but in fact is the first, and we need a colon here, so GIA. And we need a tab, so always a tab after the colon. Here we'd need a tab to start aligning it. We can put a tab here just for now, though it's not aligned yet. Here, delete the line number, delete the space, add the colon, the tab. This one there, and now we get a subtier. This is Ellie, and what we like in DOTE is that you specify exactly what sort of subtier it is, and it can be subtiers can be translation or interlinear gloss. They can be an action subtier, or they can be a figure, what we call category, but it's implemented as figure. So we need to say more, and basically we need to change this into DOTE's format, and then when we export it, we'll get it right. So as the conventions prefer. So for this we need Ely, and what sort of this is maybe a body movement, and that's now a segment there. Now let's take Jan, and Jan says something here. We need to add the tab. Then we have the translation. Now notice here we have translations and we haven't added those, so I need to add translation subtier, and also for Ellie here. Notice it's now suggesting, it's adding a tab for us, which we don't need because we've already got one. And Jan, now we have here Jan. I need to put a space there first to get the trigger. Jan, an English sub there. And for Gia, this is what Gia says, so I just add in that. This is now the translation. So we need to add Gia and get the English translation. This is all information now that DOTE can use to help you, and then you can eliminate these later on. This is now a subtier. Now who is this? As this is next to Gia, then we assume this must be Gia, and maybe this is body 2. This is her movement, so we'll add body there. And then we have Ellie says something, and then we have a timed interval, a new neighborhood. I'll start separating these into neighborhoods. So this is the end of the first neighborhood here, and here there's the end of the next neighborhood, and then Ellie says something, and then we get the next neighborhood, of which Gia, this is Gia's body, oops, there. Let's just leave it like that for now, and then we get a new neighborhood here. I'm just separating these out so it doesn't match the original yet, but it shows us more clearly what's going on. And here Gia, I need to put a space because it thinks it's part of the word. This is body, sorry, this is translation, and there we get the translation subtier, and then this must be Gia walking away, Gia's movement or body. We could call it anything we want there. So now we've got all the subtiers done, and that's because if I look here, we haven't yet added any subtiers, and so these are actually not yet working, and DOTE doesn't know which ones of these are assigned to which symbols yet. We need to add a translation subtier, so we'll say it's eng. We've used eng as short. We can use anything to suggest what language. I'll add that one. And then we need to add 2 subtiers. We need one for Ely's body and one for Gia's body, and that's all at this point. So what you do is you type Gia body. It has to be identically to what you've used. You could say you want to autocomplete. We'll say yes, and then symbol for Gia's body is a star, and there's a star. If I look again, it's no longer there because you can only pick it once. And then also for Ellie. And Ellie's body, you can have any number. You could have 50 subtiers if you want, and all of them would have to have a unique symbol. We'll say an autocomplete on that, and that is, it does look like this, but it isn't actually identical to that. I'll choose it just for now, but this symbol here is not identical to that. So I'm just going to select it, go back, and then delete that one and substitute it. And in fact, it is a different Unicode symbol. So now that's now done. Just double check, we have Mondadian system, we have a margin set, we have certain font size, we've got a translation. Now if I wanted to carry on with this and I said Gia, now we will get the translation subtier and the body for Gia automatically. And if I just go back and if I said instead Ellie, then we get for Ellie as well. So that means it's always giving you a clue in the autocomplete what would be appropriate. And you can delete those subtiers if you wish. They're not essential in every single neighborhood. But now we see this is a neighborhood. This is dictated by what Gia is saying here. And now we just need to align, as you can see down here, align some of these because they're not necessarily aligning correctly. And so what we can do is move this along to here. In fact, what we prefer, and is what sometimes specified in the conventions, is that first comes talk, overlap, and then comes, in fact we've forgotten something here. I'm just going to go back. You can see I have forgot to give this one the name. Who is this? This must be Gia. So you can see a mistake there. There's Gia. Now it's saying there's some problem here, because that's what I was expecting, is that this is doesn't seem to be connected to anything. And that's because we have this subtier too early. And I'm just going to move it now. If you press Alt and then an up arrow or down arrow, you can move it. And now we have moved it to the right location. So we've got talk first, and then we've got actions. And that's what we do. This is what we enforce in DOTE, of that particular ordering. If you don't want it, you can just take off here the errors and warnings up here, and then you won't have to bother. But DOTE won't do a very good realignment then, because what you're going to see now is if I click in here, what it should do, let me see, I think that might be because we have here an overlap. You can see the overlap is not in this subtier, but it is in this, and that's quite confusing for DOTE. There's an inconsistency, so I just deleted it from that, and now we can say fix aligned components, and this one here, the translation subtier, didn't know where to put that one because it didn't have an overlap, so we'll just move it up to here. Sometimes with subtiers you have to redo them yourself, but now we've pretty much got these now all aligned automatically. And the same in this one, we can just say do an automatic realignment, and there, that's got them pretty much. It's not identically to here, but they're now all nicely aligned vertically where they weren't here. And then there was, you can see these are nicely aligned, but it is a little, the sun here is not aligned, and it's also clearly because of Le Soleil Catalan. You cannot put the overlaps into the English, but you can here for this one. DOTE prefers to have one or the other. You can have overlaps in the subtier, the translation subtier, or not, not either or. You can have one system or the other, but you must be consistent, and that's what we see here. Now we have consistency. Things are aligned. The alignment symbols across subtiers are all aligned correctly, and that's true here. That's not true here. So again, fix that. That one's now fixed, and here. Again, that one's not fixed, so do that, and now it's fixed. Sometimes you have to click inside. It doesn't tell you unless you click, and now if we click in here, we'll see that it's thinking that everything is correct, nothing is out of line, and now we're getting there. I don't think there's any underlining here, but there is one little mistake here. That you can see the C, and of course this should be an A in English, the C. And of course the prolongation is after the A than with the vowel here on mer in French. But I think we've pretty much got identically, with some corrections and some more clear alignments, and a style in which action subtiers and figures come after talk tiers and subtiers. So we've done that, and then we could see if we had the video for this, which we don't, we could then add some sync codes and play these along with the video. Now that we've completed the import into DOTE and it's now conformed to DOTE style, then what we can easily show is that we can actually make it look exactly the same pretty much as it looks here, because this doesn't look quite the same, as you can see, with the formatting and the style and the layout. But this has now got a lot of information that allows us to look for errors and help you make a better transcript. But if you go to export to RTF, then you'll see here we could keep technical comments if we wanted with the example number, line numbering. Let's say we want to have the most progressive, which is available in the Pro version. We'll convert tabs to spaces. We'll add the Mondadian, which is only available, and maybe we'll have to reduce the font size to fit it in. And there you see with our preview, which you can export to RTF and import into a Word document or make a PDF again. Here we have, as you see, what looks to be pretty close, so we could actually reduce here the tab size to make it a little closer. We've got the line numbering is identical, it finishes on 7. We have only the lowercase and in a different grey font for the action subtiers. It's of course not exactly the same because we did move this GO1 here, which is what we prefer, and is specified somewhere in the conventions that this is preferred, so that here it's next to GIAs, but here it's after the talk of both GIA and LE. But otherwise it's identical to pretty much, with a small little corrections, to the original here. And even with italic font and grayscale and bold and with the line numbering, you can see this pretty much matches. We could of course delete some of the I added spaces for the neighborhood, but it's often good, I think, in a Mondadian system to add spaces to lay out the neighborhoods more clearly, and it does help with parsing, figuring out what a neighborhood is, because you could have 10 subtiers within the neighborhood with several people speaking, and it's quite hard to figure out just where does that end sometimes. So that does prove, so I could export that and then import that in Word and it would look identical to this. So it shows you that adding these subtiers and other things which might look to be a bit spurious, in fact this allows us to find errors much more clearly, because we know, for example, here if I say Control Enter, star has been assigned, and I can have a look in the options and see, yes, star has been assigned. That allows to detect errors which easily slip into this system, which is quite not very human readable. Almost every single transcript ever created using these conventions has mistakes, including my own. So this will hopefully find at least 20 different types of errors in DOTE, if you specify these subtier types, and then you can eliminate them at the end. Okay, so we'll have to stop there, and that's hopefully given you some idea of the work you need to do to import transcripts from other sources, either from Word documents, plain text documents, or from PDF documents, publications, and then the work you have to do and the care you have to do take in order to get things nicely aligned like the original.